Hello, hello! Today we're going to be working on finishing off this little opal rub. I won't do a lot of background on it. If you want the background and how it got to here from the piece of rough, I'll link it up here, pop it up on the screen, all that kind of stuff. You can go check that video out. What we're going to do is jump straight into it today, and the first step will be dopping this using 5-minute epoxy. So you can see the setup here, little stone. We've got the epoxies here, Araldite 5-minute. Little mixing stick just here, and this is what it's going to end up dopped on. So I've got a more detailed video on all of this process, and I'll link that as well, pop it up on screen. What I will mention is that the residue from previous uses can actually make your epoxy set a little bit quicker. So what I do is just grab a pair of scissors and easily just snip that off. It's best to do. I mean, you can dop pretty quickly, but if you're doing a large batch of stones, you really want to make sure that you don't set it too quickly. And yeah, we'll just quickly run through the process now. All it is a 50-50 mix of part A and part B. We're only going to need a tiny amount of both because we're just doing the one stone. Normally I save up a whole batch of stones and do them all together. But part A, part B, put them next to each other. Don't get any on the tube. Chuck the lid on it. And then with your mixing stick, just give it a really good mix. Chop it up, mix it up. Don't worry if it's got air bubbles and stuff in it. And when you're happy with it, grab your dop stick. Chuck a nice clump on it. And then just let it kind of settle for a bit. You can also chuck a little bit on the end of your stone. So we'll just chuck a bit on the back side of the stone, and then we'll just leave them apart for a little while. You want to just let it kind of skin over a bit, and then we'll just contact them together and they should lock in place pretty quickly that way. And then when you're ready to go, just slap them together. Now this is way too much glue for just one stone. I've really layered it on thick. You want to make sure that the stone's edges are far away from the dot. So as central as possible. You've got quite a lot of time to work on this, but you can see that it's now, see that side way too close. It's actually sliding. So more like that. Hold it upright so it doesn't slip away from you. Maybe a little bit more this way, it's already starting to grip. And then all I do, because this does take a lot longer than wax and super glue, is just use a little bit of this. So your classic putty blue tack, yes, this stuff is pretty dirty, it sits on the bench all the time. So the boulder opal and opal dust gets on it, mainly boulder, the rest I keep nice and wet and don't get too much dust out here, but the boulder just gets everywhere. So chuck that down there. Stab this on the top. Wham bam, you've got yourself a dop stone. So we'll leave that there for a couple hours now. I'm actually going to go to bed and leave it overnight, and she'll be good to go tomorrow. And we'll hit it with the Novas. Alright, and here we are at the end. This is the piece. Nice, cute little oval. It's got a bit of colour to it. It's a little bit potch lined and potchy from the face, so it's not a great gem, but it's something. It's worked out quite well. Compared to other winners of the vote, it's much better than those. I don't think we've got a stone out of a first vote winner yet. At least not one this size. This is about 1.5 carats. I'll pop up a picture of it once I get it off the dop stick and weigh it, but I'll do that after the video. As per usual, I've touched the face, so there's some nice fingerprints on it as well. And you can see there, it's still on its dop with the epoxy. But yeah, it's pretty nice. Now when it comes to setting it, if you're making a setting, it doesn't matter so much. But if you've got a setting that you're already trying to set it into, what I do, rather than relying on the stencils to make sure that it's come out okay, basically get your little calipers and just measure your sides, make sure it's all good. Like this one here is just about 5mm wide. I ended up going a bit narrower than the 6mm, and 10 in length. So we did lose a fair bit when we went through and cut it back a little bit more with the Novas. And hopefully I left a lot of good notes on the video during the carving, but basically, just to recap, the black, you're really doing a lot of the final shaping. You can do some micro changes when you get to the brown, the 600 grit, but after that you can really relax and just work on getting the polish, but you're not going to be able to change the shape much after. So your 1200 and 3000 are purely just working on getting it ready for some cerium and then hitting it with some cerium and getting this nice shiny glint across the opal. And just letting the colour do its thing. Letting it pop. Yeah, not the greatest. A little bit potchy, but it does have some colour play in the right angles. Too directional for my liking. I will probably use this to bezel set. We had to go for a really low dome instead of a high dome, just because of this side. You can see here, I dome that much more, and then you start seeing this border of potch over here, whereas the other side went all the way through to colour. That angled colour bar and the unfortunate starting position we were in, we had to make do, but if you bezel set, there's a tiny little edge of it here. If you bezel set that, you won't see it at all. So this one, I reckon, is destined to become bezel set for a ring. If we zoom out a bit, you can see it here. I've got fairly big fingers. So, destined to be a nice bezel set ring, and I don't think it'll look too shabby. It's just a little bit directional. Little bit directional. But overall, I'll count that as a win for a winner of the vote. The next stone will actually be this one here. This was number 4 in the vote. And yeah, we'll get straight into it. It's got a nice colour bar up the top here. And that's really about it. I think there were a couple other bits and pieces, but we'll dive into it and have a closer look later. Now to get this off the dop stick, because it's epoxy, all I'm going to do is small tub of water. Boom. Leave it in there. Eventually it'll want to come off, and we'll just pull it off the end, and I'll weigh it up and put that photo in. And yeah, that's it. That's all it takes to cut yourself a little bit of a nicely domed oval with a Dremel. It's a fair bit of work, but take it slow, take it easy, and you'll get there in the end. So have a crack, and I'll see you in the next video.